Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Devil's Cut, a podcast about all the things that go bump in the night. If it's spooky, scary, or spine-tingling, we're here to talk about it. I'm your resident man-boy possessed by a devil, Matt Young, and here, as always, is my co-host, the skeleton everyone should want in their closet,
Eric Rossi.
And you know where else we're welcoming them back to? Our trop. You can hear it in the distance. You can hear the waves, the sound of the birds. We're back at our private island. We're here at Mar-a-Lago.
Oh no, not Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, we're here deep in Mar-a-Lago. We found the store of rum. We found the rum closet.
I think we might need to take a break. We might need to go on a little bit of a pleasure cruise and maybe get away from the island while they're rebranding it.
And when they take all the bars off the doors and windows, that is turning out to be much more expensive than I thought it was going to be.
That's unfortunate.
There's also a lot more rooms underground I wasn't aware of. I'm going to have to count it towards my square footage when I try to sell. Do underground bunkers on islands off the coast count towards square footage.
With your tape measure?
Yeah, I'll have to get Justin Long on the horn, see what he knows about it. But no, we're back for week 2 of Matt's Hot, Wet Summer. Yeah, very exciting, very exciting. Last week we had a really fun, if not very analytical and scientific adventure about why the ocean specifically is so scary. We didn't really talk about why lakes and rivers can be scary.
A little bit, but I don't think we're ever going to have an episode so math heavy.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully not. Because you know what, I was there and I listened to it a second time and I was still confused. So
well, this week it's pretty straightforward.
Oh yeah, we're doing movies, confusing. The bread and butter.
Yes.
But you know what? This time we're not doing anything new because our kind of the middle of our summer is jam packed with new movies that we're gonna have to take that pleasure cruise over, to the mainland to do. But for now, we are doing a little movie called Deep Rising. Now, you probably have heard of this movie. And by you, I mean the royal you, the listener, not Eric.
Capital U. I definitely saw it.
But you know what? I'm sure I heard the word deep, or the name of the movie Deep Rising, but I had never seen it until I started planning this summer extravaganza.
I was surprised that I had never seen anything from it either. After viewing it, I was like, I can't believe I haven't seen this movie like 100 times on FX or like
it's
fucking
perfect like mid-afternoon
AMC back in the day.
Sci-Fi Network or FX or even like TNT.
TNT, yeah. This is like primed for like Sunday afternoon television broadcasting.
Yes, because this is in addition to many things, this is a wonderful hangover movie. This is the perfect kind of movie that you can just, and this is not a deridement or a derision. This is not a bad thing. It's perfect if you're hungover, you're like tired as shit Sunday morning, Saturday morning, and you're like, oh, I just want to lay on the couch and kind of like drift in and out of consciousness while a movie plays over the back. This is perfect because at no point will you ever be lost if you like suddenly lose 20 minutes of it.
This is honestly the best kind of like beach vacation movie too. Like not because of the content, but because like you could come in from a long day at the beach or like a long day out on the town, throw this on, just kind of hang out while everyone naps and recuperates, and then bang, you're back at it. It's great.
Yeah, it is. It really is one of the. It's a simple movie. It's fun. It's an adventure, and some you don't need any of every movie to be this like deep analysis on the human condition.
No,
or any sometimes you just want a monster to kill some guys. You want to hear and see some explosions, and maybe you do a cool jet ski jump.
And you know what? Considering when it was made, a surprising lack of problematic dialogue.
Yes, it's honestly it's a very tame movie in that regard. There's nothing that you can be like, Deep Rising is great, but like, you know, they said a couple things about
if
Jews.
it wasn't for those slurs.
And it was, you know what, it was 1997 that it was filmed. We were like on the cusp of the aughts where we were going to just get just nonstop gay jokes like every second in a horror movie, you know? The early aughts were rough.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, this movie is just super, super fun. Again, I had never seen it. I'm sad that it hasn't been part of my life, but also not, because now I like get this new movie that I'm like, oh, like I get to just enjoy this every once in a while, because this is definitely one that I'm gonna just throw on. I'm gonna add it to my list of like, I'll always just watch it if it's around, you know?
Yeah. It's a hard one to turn down.
Yeah, I just, it's just a really good time. And I hope that, you know, for any listeners who haven't seen it, I hope we convince you while we're talking about it to go check it out. I mean, honestly, you don't even have to spend money on it, because I'm pretty sure somebody uploaded like the full feature film to YouTube. You can just go find like the hour, 40-minute video anytime you want. Watch it in little chunks.
Yeah. I will say it is, it holds up surprisingly well. It looks relatively good for the time. And it's not the scariest film of all time, but it is certainly gruesome and gory.
Yeah, this one kind of rides the line a little bit, but I include it because, as we'll get into what it's about in just a moment. But after I watched it, I went, oh, that's just water aliens.
Yeah,
not to try and, I don't want to get like people who were like, how dare you compare Deep Rising to the masterpiece that is Aliens? You know, I'm not saying it's like as good as Aliens, but I mean, it is like essentially like a water equivalent. It's about a bunch of, it's very military, like tactical. It's like got a squad of goons with like heavy weaponry. There's like one competent non-military guy in the whole place. There's lots of like skulking around metal corridors and like creatures coming out of nowhere, you know. It's,
and I think they borrow to the benefit of their movie. I don't think there was a single part of it that made me go like, ugh, I wish I was just watching Aliens.
No, and there's, you know what, and there's a reason for all of the good stuff that we're going to talk about. It like, there are very specific reasons why it's good.
It's flavored with those other very good movies, yeah.
And you'll see, you'll learn some fun stuff as we go. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what Deep Rising is, right? So Deep Rising, 1997 horror adventure, I would say.
Yeah,
that's where I would classify it. It's got some scary stuff, but it's more leaning on adventure. But again, if Aliens counts, I say this counts.
Yeah, definitely.
So horror adventure. The film was originally written under the title of Tentacles,
which adds up.
Fair.
At Deep Rising, honestly, misleading, but good.
I think they're both good. I think Tentacles. I'm assuming, if I had to guess, the studio was like, it's too B movie of a name. Like,
it is extremely B movie of a name.
You need to give it like it makes it, Deep Rising makes it feel very 90s, where they were like more conscious of like shitty movies, and they were like, no, we have to be, we're a studio, right?
We need to elevate ourselves.
It was written and directed by Stephen Sommers, who listeners probably know from the much decidedly more successful Mummy franchise. So Stephen Sommers, that he's, if you like the Mummy,
that's Brendan Fraser, right?
Yes, that's the Brendan Fraser Mummy. And I think he did all of them, except I think he directed all of them, including the Scorpion King. Except I think he wrote but didn't direct the Dragon Emperor one.
The new one,
the newest one, which is still fucking old.
Yeah, what was that? 2011.
Yeah,
I feel like
really
it was like so long ago, but it's
to call it new is a bit weird. But yeah, so. If you like those movies, the bones, like the DNA of Mummy, is so in this movie.
Yeah,
you can tell that like he went, all right, I did Deep Rising, I know what I fucked up. He was trying to make the Mummy for a long time, and so basically after Deep Rising, probably during Deep Rising, he signed on, because the performance of Deep Rising, I don't know how anybody would have given him a job if he wasn't already signed on.
Yeah, right.
You know?
They didn't get to see his work. They were like, you know what? Based on your notes here, we're going to give you another job. And he's like, thank God, because I'm about to fucking lob a stinker out into the fucking
it's
industry.
Rough. We'll find out in a second. Also, I success-wise, I think this movie is closer to the Scorpion King than anything.
Unfortunately.
But Scorpion King is like the American Pie of dumb like Conan ripoffs.
Oh yeah,
there's like a million Scorpion King movies that just went like straight to like VHS. They didn't even make DVDs. They were like, this is so bad, just put it on these tapes.
Really? I didn't even know that. I thought there was one Scorpion King and then maybe a sequel. Gun to my head,
there's a handful of them.
Oh no,
it's pretty bad.
I would say
and a lot of them don't even feel. I think only the first one has The Rock in it.
True, that I know. But I would say the failure of this movie is unfortunate. Like, I feel like this movie didn't deserve to be shit on and fail and flop as hard as it did at the box office.
No, and again, just like I said, the reason why this movie is actually really good is for very specific reasons that I'll detail out to you. But the reasons why it failed is also very specific, and you can trace like direct lines to why this did not work out for them. And it's all pretty unfortunate. I agree. It's a shame, but you know, sometimes that's them's the breaks, right? So the movie tells the tale of a stoic sailor and a group of hijackers bound for a Lux ocean liner for the top 1%, both of which are unknowingly in the path of something from the deep that will stop at nothing.
Ooh.
It stars Treat Williams, who I thought his name was Tret, and then I was all snooty about it, and then everybody online I heard say Treat, so I guess his name's Treat, which is a weird name.
Like Trick or Treat?
Yeah, like Trick or Treat Williams.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, Treat Williams, who is really awesome in this movie. He's great. And I'm surprised. I was like, he must be like in a bunch of action movies, like, because you know, you and the friend group know that I have a big film like dark area, which is like really popular 80s movies. Like up until like a couple years ago, I had never seen the Terminator movies.
Well, I'll be the first to tell you, his performance in this is so clearly in like Kurt Russell and like Indiana Jones like influence. Like there's so much like Snake Plissken in this guy that is crazy.
Yes. Which is why I was so shocked, because I was like, he has to be in a bunch of things I've never seen, and he's really not. In fact, the only thing that I would even like bring up is a movie I have seen, which is the Phantom movie. He was the Phantom.
It's not.
You know the Phantom though, right?
Do I?
Yeah, he's the I think IDW owns him. He's the guy who wears the black domino mask and the all purple leotard.
Oh,
you have to. You know, you've seen him before. He's an old comic book character.
Oh. Okay, yes.
They made a movie like in the 80s.
Oh, look at that, 96. The Phantom. Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't. It was 96. That movie is weird, dude. We have to find that and check that one out. It's such a fever dream. But yeah, so Treat Williams, not really in all that much. I mean, he's in a lot of like he does a lot of procedural TV. He'll show up for like one episode. Well, I mean, he said unfortunately, I say he won't anymore because he did pass away a few years back. But in addition to Treat Williams, we have Famke Janssen, who I'm pretty sure everybody knows her as Jean Grey. She was in the X-Men movies. But she was also in GoldenEye. In fact, it was her performance in GoldenEye that like kind of both got her into the movie, but almost didn't get her into the movie. And then we also have Anthony Heald, who was also in the X-Men movies, but most notably, he's I forget the name. He's a doctor in Silence of the Lambs and Red Dragon. Like you said, he's the guy who just is like terminally cast as like the evil goober.
Yeah,
you know?
he's the guy who's like clearly a problem, but he's like such a fucking loser that he gets
he doesn't
outclassed.
Get big bad status.
Yeah, no.
He's always just kind of like the runner-up asshole in terms of villainy.
No, if I was to put him into like Batman terms, he would be like the rich investor who like didn't realize he was investing in like a Joker scheme.
In the Joker's like carnival.
Yeah, and he gets his ass kicked like 2/3 of the way through by Batman, and then he gets inevitably killed by the Joker.
Yes, exactly. That is kind of the character he always ends up playing.
And he crushes it in that role. Every time, honestly, he's such a good sniveling weirdo.
I think a sniveling weirdo is great. He's so good in this movie. But honestly, so those are the three I would say stars. But that's not all. This I don't want to say. I hesitate to say that this movie has an all-star cast.
It does not.
What is the like term for it's like an all-star cast equivalent of like a bunch of like famous people, but they're like kind of famous. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, I know all of them, but they're not like. It's not like having like the Avengers in your movie, right?
They're all like pitch hitters. So like they're not like A tier, but they would essentially fit in for the guy who is A tier. Yeah. They're like, you know, that counterpart. They're like,
and it's all of them.
Yeah.
Which makes the movie, you're like, oh, everybody's in this movie, but it's all everybody that's kind of like always on the side of the movie.
Adjacent, yeah.
Like we have Kevin J. O'Connor, who really his performance stole the show, but not really. He was really funny, but it was mostly because the script hated him so much.
The script hates him so bad.
So he plays Joey, and the listeners will know him. He was recast. So Stephen Sommers plucked him. He was like, you were so much fun to have on set. And you're like, he really loved his improv a lot, so he brought him back on for The Mummy, and he plays Benny in The Mummy, which he's like everyone's favorite character in that movie because he's such a doofus.
I mean, he's great in this movie. I would say his performance does steal the show.
I think
it's
so.
fucking hilarious. It
really
doesn't overstay its welcome, and he feels like real. He feels very believable, even though it is like a late 90s action horror.
Yeah, that's what I will say. All of the characters are kind of cartoonish, but not in a way that takes away or distracts from the film. You kind of want it and need it because everybody is so distinct. There's no, even the like, there's a big group of goons, like mercenaries or terrorists or whatever they are, criminals.
I would say
probably mercenaries,
mercenary
right?
goons, yeah.
And they, you would think like, oh, they're just guys with guns. They're all fodder to be torn apart by a monster. So they're probably not going to be that interesting. But no, every single one of them has a very distinct personality, a la Aliens, where even the guy who gets taken out first, you still know so much about him based on his character's like few lines that he has. Everyone's just so fully realized, even if they are cartoonish.
Yeah. It's
more fun that way. Like, I'd rather have a bunch of characters that I understand and like can at least like grasp onto than a bunch of like just nothing, just like dust in the wind characters that mean and they die and I'm like, whatever, like, you know, it's crazy. So you have Kevin J. O'Connor, you have Wes Studi, who he's always the like kind of like quiet hard ass villain guy. Like he was his biggest movie was Last of the Mohicans. Have you ever seen that one?
Yes.
He was the like antagonistic Mohican, like he wasn't like the chief, but he was like the warrior who like had the final fight with the main character.
Was he? Who was he in Street Fighter? Was he Sagat in Street Fighter?
I don't know. I actually haven't seen the Street Fighter movie.
What? Oh, they're terrible.
Oh, I know. One of the reasons why I haven't seen it. In addition to Wes Studi, we've got tons of people, but a big shout out to Digimon Hansu, who is like in everything. But again, he's always like just slightly off to the side. Like he was in what? He was most recently in Rebel Moon, but he was also in Blood Diamond, the Never Back Down movies, those stinkers from the.
He's great. I'm surprised he doesn't have more leading roles. He's got like great screen presence.
Well, yeah, he's in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's in a bunch of DC movies, Aquaman, among other things. You know, he's in so many movies because he's got good like henchman energy. You know, but like in charge of the henchmen. He's always like top hench. You know,
yeah, Captain Henchman.
But yeah, so that's the cast. But the movie, the quality of it goes even deeper. The composer of this movie, the music of this movie is wild. It is in a really just so like cozy, comfy 90s way. It really goes all out. The composer was Jerry Goldsmith, who he composed the music for The Mummy. Again, Summers was like, well, it worked. I liked it once, I like it twice.
This wasn't the broken part of my movie. Let's take it over into the new one.
But he also composed the score for Air Force One, Small Soldiers,
that
Secret of NIMH,
some shit.
Total Recall, LA Confidential.
Ooh.
Tons and tons and
LA
tons
Confidential
and tons
is
of
so
movies,
good.
Dude, this guy's music is in everything. There's also, I saw a bunch of pictures of him with like, it's like the top three like composers from that era, and like he's always in there with them, you know. So his soundtracks are pretty prolific. So that's why the movie sounds so crazy, and you're like, what's going on here? Why is music popping off like this right out of the gate too?
Yeah,
the movie starts and you're like in the middle of the sea, a storm's going, the music's like. It's wild. It sounds so fun. It's almost like has kind of like a G.I. Joe cartoon vibe.
It does. It's very fun. It's like it's so weird to talk about like in hindsight, because you have so many other films like it where they are taking themselves too seriously and thus make like a bunch of schlock.
Yeah.
And I feel like these guys didn't take themselves too seriously and ended up with like a good, like a very positively distilled version of like schlockier predecessors.
Yeah, but like you said, the nice thing is they weren't taking themselves seriously, but they weren't taking themselves as a joke.
Yeah.
You know, they were like, we know what we're making. It's not hyper serious, but it's, you know, we can have lighthearted moments. The music can be a little warm and fun.
Mm-hmm.
It really, this movie, I said it to you like over the weekend. It's just so cozy to me. It just feels, it's got this very specific era's form of nostalgia. 90s nostalgia is hot right now, so you know everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah,
all around the filmmakers, the director, the cinematographer, the actors, everybody. I think they were doing a wonderful job here.
I mean, even down to the special effects, isn't that by like a really?
It was. I forget the name of the original effects studio, but they did end up bringing on Industrial Light and Magic, that's Disney and
that's the Star Wars.
That's the Star Wars. Yeah. The Industrial Light and Magic did the effects for Star Wars and Jurassic Park. So honestly, that's why this movie. I do think the monster in this movie doesn't hold up amazing, but holds up pretty well.
I would say when we get to see the full reveal, it looks bad.
It's a little rough.
It looks bad.
It's a little rough.
But I would say the rest of it, there are shots
fairly
where I'm
decent.
like, this looks fucking better than some stuff now. There's definitely some animations that you can tell are like, wow, this is lit in a
it's a
different
cartoon
program.
that you're looking at when you see the monster.
But it holds up. It holds up great.
It does. It's no like T-Rex in the rain, you know, from
No.
Jurassic Park, but it does. I'd say it doesn't look bad enough that it takes anything away from it. You'll still enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, the actors do a good job of pretending that a big monster's there. So
yes.
I have it's fun. Anyway, so to go back to the production of the film, so the cost. This is now we're getting into the negative, right? We said all the good stuff, and this isn't us. This is the world saying
these are facts.
Things.
These are unfortunate facts.
The cost of the film was $45 million. Now that's in 1997. Adjusted for inflation, it's more close to $87 million.
That's hilarious. I didn't know, but I should have known that this was a huge money hole for them.
It was a gigundous money hole, dude.
Oh man.
And throughout its lifetime, now this is not like, you know, this wasn't just box office. This is until right now, it has only recouped $11 million.
Yo.
And if you're taking all of that and adjusting its lifetime total, that's still only 26 million adjusted.
Yeah.
So it is even deeper in the hole because of inflation. it's so
Brendan Fraser should be fucking thanking his lucky stars that The Mummy ever even happened. Holy shit.
But you know, and like I said, there are some very good reasons for why this movie performed so poorly over time. But like any good movie, as we've come to realize, there troubles galore in production. Right, that's what usually makes a good movie. Is like it's just infinite roadblocks and hurdles.
No surprise. Anytime you want to put a fucking movie like in the ocean, over the ocean, on the sea, it's ripe with disaster.
Well, it's funny too because it's mostly not over the sea or on the ocean.
Yeah, but once you put it in that setting,
But yeah, once you have a wet movie,
yeah,
because it's hard to work with water.
yeah, it's hard to work with water. It's hard to maintain the sets. It's hard to plan out your, production around the fact that most of your sets are going to be flooded with water.
Yeah, it's brutal. And you know what? Honestly, so the problems start out immediately with casting, right? Because originally, and so this is the reason why Treat Williams' character, Captain Finnegan, the reason why he has so much of that very specific energy you were talking about is because this movie was written for and had originally cast Han Solo himself, Mr. Indiana Jones.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that adds up.
So Harrison Ford was on board for this movie.
I mean, hot take maybe. I don't think Harrison Ford would have really fucking stuck the landing.
I think having Treat Williams does improve it. I think it would have just become the Harrison Ford show.
Yeah.
I think having Treat step in was overall better for the movie. The reason why Harrison Ford left was because he finally got the go-ahead to do Air Force One, which he was way more interested in doing and had been seeking to do for a long time.
Significantly more successful.
I think it all worked out for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he went on to do Air Force One. And then also the love interest of Captain Finnegan, the character named Trillian, played by Famke Janssen in this movie, was originally played by, I forget the actress's name, but she plays what's-her-face in Mallrats, the girl who goes on the dating show.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but she left like 3 days into production because she could not get along with Summers, with the director. She was like, creative differences, I'm out.
That's so weird. How do you figure that out in 3 days? Like, what...
I don't know what I was not able to find any like written down like he said, she said, anything. It was just all creative differences.
That's so bizarre because I feel like you didn't. I didn't come across anything of anyone else not getting along with this guy.
No, everyone seemed to have a really good time on set.
That's so weird.
All accounts say this movie was very fun, if not a little difficult to work on, just logistically.
Mm-hmm.
And by this point, so our two leads have departed, right? Harrison Ford didn't even start. He was like, "Oh, never mind." And our other romantic interest has skedaddled. So they cast Treat Williams, and this is the point where Summers says, "Okay, if we don't have Harrison Ford, then I want all nobodies. Like I want
Makes
all
sense.
unheard ofs, because we're going to go the other direction. We're going to try and get new talent in." And they almost didn't cast Famke Janssen because she was hot off the heels of GoldenEye, where she was
almost too successful to get a role.
Yes, she was like he was like, I think she's too big right now, but I whatever. It ended up falling through anyway. At least she came in, so he was like, whatever, all right, bring Famke in.
So weird.
So it's already like a rocky start, right? We're already like, we don't even have our leads aren't stable. Also, there was a lot of butting heads with Famke and the director also, because she ended up getting her way, because she was like, I don't want to just keep being like this sexy girl. Like I want to be normal.
Yes, I want to be useful.
Apparently, a quote was, "You can be normal when you're not the lead in an action. You're the lead romantic interest in an action film."
Both solid arguments.
But she ends up getting her way because the character like dresses, she gets comfy like halfway through the movie, and we're like, oh, look at that, she's out of that dress.
Yeah, the first third of
cat suit.
The first third of the movie, she's in this like skin tight dress, and then they find some other clothes. And I even mentioned
it's funny, she is dressing just in the background. Like they're having a conversation and Famke Janssen's like trying on clothes.
It was funny though. I brought it up when we watched it. I was like, man, good on the character and good on the writing for being like, hey, maybe if she found like a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, she might slip into that instead of this fucking, cocktail dress halfway through the movie. You never get to see that. It's always like some poor chick is running around in a fucking torn up, ball gown by the end of the movie, and she's being whisked off her feet because her shoes are gone.
Yeah, it's just it's refreshing whenever you get to see like a practical move like that that just like makes sense, but also isn't really like focused on, it wasn't like, oh look, she's transformed now, she's in action mode. It was just like she's literally getting dressed like just slightly on screen in the background.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a huge like schlocky like shot of like a bunch of guys peeking around the corner to watch a girl
Nobody was
undress.
paying attention to
No,
her.
no. It was,
Like literally she gets back on screen dressed in her like mom jeans and like white tank top, and Tree Williams' character is like, oh, hey, you changed. But so so that's the casting, right? But stuff keeps going wrong. Like they had a lot of issues with figuring out practical effects, and how to combine that with the elaborate special effects that were going to happen.
mm-hmm.
But I will say that the team did a really good job with it anyway. Like there was a lot of like tentacle play in this movie.
I mean, yeah, I would hope so in the movie that was almost named Tentacle.
Yeah, but it's almost all CGI, but occasionally the characters will get hit with like a really quick tentacle, and that's all like weird, funny, like corrugated tubes and stuff, but you never notice because it all is filmed so quickly and they're like done up so well that you're like, yeah, that's a tentacle.
Yeah.
So they did a good job, but it was still a huge hurdle to like just logistically figure out like how to incorporate practical effects into the movie, which when they do it, it's very appreciated. Like whenever you get a character that's like being whipped around by an underwater tentacle and all the red Kool-Aid is like shooting up, it looks good and it feels very tactile. So it makes me forgive like the heavy CGI that happens later in the movie.
Yeah.
Still though, caused a huge headache. Location wise, they went to a couple different places. They originally, I think, tried to film like on the water, like on a boat, and they were like, nope. Almost like immediately, they're like, no, this isn't going to work. And also, it's going to be way too expensive to film anywhere, basically, but Canada.
Huh.
Yeah, I think
weird.
I think it was Vancouver. They went somewhere like really cold for some reason. But they just went there to film in a studio, and they built a gigantic water tank. They found out the cheapest option was to build a big water tank and do all of our stuff in that.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. And what's really funny and sad for the budget of this movie is they were like the cheapest option like is gonna be to go here and film in Canada in this water tank, because the original idea was going to cost them somewhere of like $300,000 to film at. And so they're like, well, we'll save money. We'll go to Vancouver and do this tank warehouse. But halfway through filming, there was like a rupture in the tank and it flooded like the entire street they were on. It ended up costing them $600,000 to repair everything.
Oh, fuck.
So it ended up being like triple the cost of the thing that they didn't do because it was too expensive.
Jeez.
It was like an actual, like, it took out like multiple like buildings.
Just a local city disaster because Deep Rising was in town. Oh no, you don't understand. It's fun. It's a good movie about tentacles.
Yeah. And so
meanwhile, there's like just furious fire departments for like fucking 3 mile
they're not
radius.
even Summers isn't allowed back in Canada anymore. He's actually still wanted. There's pictures of in the equivalent of the FBI for Canada. There's just posters and it's just like it says wanted and it's just the Deep Rising poster. So between like the practical effects, the location changes, the disasters that went on, that was causing a lot of issues, both monetarily and in just like the time it took to film this movie. But the biggest time sink was the digital stuff, trying to figure out how to make this monster and work it into what they'd filmed. They needed 2 studios, right? They had their original studio and they were like, we need help. And so they bring in fucking Disney. And even then, like, even with Industrial Light and Magic, this film, it takes so long to get all the effects done for this movie and get them right that this movie goes so far past the original release date. Like literally a full year goes by.
Oh,
and
no.
while that year is going by, while they're making this CGI monster for Deep Rising, other movies like Anaconda, Alien 4, Event Horizon, Speed 2, the boat one,
Speed 2,
all come out. And now where there at once was like a lack, like a dearth of big budget like creature features. Now there's like a bunch that go down in history as like way more like culturally relevant movies.
Yeah, they got stuck in development and never made it out in time. That sucks.
And so a bunch of movies. Now everyone was like the movie goers that Deep Rising would have catered to are now like, well, we're kind of full. We had a bunch of movies like this.
We already saw Ice Cube's performance in Anaconda.
And debatably worse for them is not the movies that came out while they were making it. Right when this movie was like, all right, now we have our launch date. We're releasing the movie. This is it. It's coming out. It literally came out within like the same month as Titanic.
Fuck. The same
boat movie.
The capital TB, the boat movie.
The boat movie.
Fuck.
So I wonder, the
long boat movie
just
too.
Think about but just think about how massive Titanic is made. It's like, hasn't it made the most money ever for a movie ever for anything?
I think it wasn't until like the extended re-release of like the first Avatar movie did the like Titanic numbers get fully like eclipsed.
Yeah. So which boat movie do you think people were going to see while Deep Rising was out? Do you think they were going to see Deep Rising or fucking Titanic? So it's just like, what? At no point was Deep Rising like ever gonna succeed financially.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's quite sad, but it makes for like a really just funny comedy of errors story for the movie, where you're like, those reasons, and in addition to how fun the movie is itself, are the reason why it's like become a huge cult movie, because it's fun to watch. People are finally realizing it, but also like just thinking about like all the shit that went wrong with it too. Just so funny.
Yeah. I mean, it was destined to sink from the beginning, clearly.
Yeah, it really was. In fact, the plot of the movie is kind of like about the movie itself.
A big job gone wrong.
No, well, yes, but also it's the hook of the movie. Spoilers, I guess, is about the guy. The reason why the boat is in trouble in the first place is because the captain was like, or the guy who made the boat, the rich guy was like, I made the boat, but it was so expensive that even these rich people's tickets aren't enough financially for me to recover. It's impossible.
You love a movie whose message inadvertently becomes like it
was like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so funny. That's all in the past. Here we are today, all these years later. People be loving Deep Rising. I when I first went online, I was like, who's talking about this movie? After I saw it, there's Reddit threads all over where people are like, hey, does anyone remember like the Deep Rising is like a really fun, cool movie? And I was like, oh fuck yeah, finally somebody's talking about it. It's like there's a million Reddit threads where everyone's like, oh shit, I love Deep Rising.
The sleeper awakens. Everyone's like, oh, finally it's time for Deep Rising apologists.
Yeah, it is the time for it. And I think we can, get into more spoiler territory now. We'll just talk about like some fun parts of the movie, the stuff we really liked. If you're really interested and you don't want spoilers for it, I don't think spoilers will do anything to take away from the film.
No.
But, feel free to go ahead. You can pause the podcast and then you don't even have to leave your phone. You just go to YouTube. You can watch it right there. You don't even have to put down your phone, and then you can just resume. You don't even have to pause. Just if you just start a YouTube video, we'll stop. And then when the YouTube video is over, we'll start again automatically. It's like really easy. But yeah, so let's get into some deeper into the movie and the stuff we liked about it.
Remind me, I briefly mentioned it on the last episode. Have you ever been on a cruise? How many cruises have you been on?
I've never been on a cruise. I've never been like until Hawaii for my honeymoon. I had never been like off the United States,
off the continent. Okay,
yeah. All right. Like unless you count like a fishing boat where I could still see the land.
No,
like I've never been out
in the open ocean.
Onto the ocean.
Okay,
which you know what? I'm opposed to like in a little boat. Big boat I'm fine with, which is funny because every time a big boat is on screen, it ends up in half and in the ocean.
I mean, why else put it on screen?
Right? If you're not going to blow it up or cut it in half or fill it with tentacles, like what's the point?
I was so surprised at how much of this movie did look like a cruise ship. Like, I've been on two cruises. I'm no like cruise professional. I think the first one I went on was like a graduation gift for an ex, and then the other one was a vacation. So like, I've been on two, but I was amazed at how much that the sets like looked like a cruise ship.
Yeah, it looked good. I mean, it looked like a cruise ship to me. Again, I've only seen them in films. I've never been on an actual cruise ship, but it's good to know that you think it stuck the landing.
I think it holds up, especially for like the 90s. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like some of that like under deck stuff where they're like way in the bowels of the ship looks a little bit too industrial. But the only thing I was missing out on was like, oh, how come there's no good scenes like up on the deck where like, or like outside, but like knowing now
because
that
they were in a warehouse, in a warehouse, kiddie pool, essentially.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, anytime you see the exterior of the ship, it's a lot of CGI, scale models, and that's about it. Occasionally, you'll be on like the side of the boat with the characters, and that's just like a wall, like a wood wall that's painted to look like a boat, and there's just like clearly like four guys with hoses, like going.
That thumb on the end of a hose making it rain.
And so, yeah, so Deep Rising, so we open up, right? Like I said before, immediately the music is pumping. It's like the dead of night. It's really dark. It's stormy. You're out on the sea. You get this boat that looks like a escape pod from a sci-fi movie. Mm-hmm. You know, like it looks like a spaceship escape pod. Not as much on the outside. On the outside, it looks very like cobbled together. It's like the Millennium Falcon of tugboats.
Yeah, especially on the interior of these sets. I think they look great.
They do.
But they are very typical of that like late 80s to like early 2000s where like people have no idea what technology looks like. Just throw like a billion little
just throw knobs and buttons and screens.
100 monitors that do nothing.
Yeah, it does look, it looks like retro futuristic
trash.
It
looks
tech,
great,
right?
Yeah,
but it looks, it's awesome. Like it seriously feels like Chewbacca should be banging something with like a weird sci-fi wrench. And I guess one of the characters is very Chewbacca-like. But yeah, so we get so this is Captain Finnegan, right, and his crew, which include our favorite boy Joey. Mm-hmm. Played by Kevin J. O'Connor, but it also has a girl on there. I honestly forget her name because she seems like she's going to be an important character. And in fact, there's like a part where you're like, she gets taken out by this creature, but she gets taken out in a way where you're like, oh, I get it. She seems so relevant to the crew. Like she'll come back at like the last moment and, you know, save the day, and I'm like, oh, you were alive, and the whole crew gets back together. But no, she just straight up gets deleted from the movie.
Dude, I don't know what you're talking about, because when she gets sucked out of the side of the hole of that boat, her like the like mannequin they used to simulate her clearly like blasts its head against the side wall as it gets pulled out, and I was like, oh, she's dead. She's big time dead.
It just, well, yeah, the effect doesn't look good for her, but just the writing of the movie, it seemed like they were angling her to be like, because she's the girlfriend of a guy that really seems like he should die, you know, and she seems very competent, and so it just felt like the movie was gearing it up to be like, oh, she's gonna return at the last second to like save the day, but no, she's just
womp womp.
But anyway, so you have these three characters that, you know, Finnegan, Joey, and girlfriend, and they are on they're like, whole thing is they're sort of like they're like a charter ship, but their whole thing is like, we don't ask questions, so like we'll take pirates to whatever. Yes, you know.
they're broker than broke, and they're like, we don't give a fuck what the job is, we don't ask questions, we just drive the boat. They're like the guy from Drive. They're like, they're just, we don't bring a gun in, we don't hold any things, we don't do anything, we just drive.
Exactly. And so the people that they are driving are a crew of hijackers, essentially, we said earlier, mercenaries, led by Wes Studi's character Hanover. And it, like, again, it's this motley crew of dudes. We get a whole bunch of scenes where they're interacting with each other. They're gruff military types. They all have their, like, you have the big burly, like, Australian dude who's, like, seasick, you know. So it's like, oh, we're gonna, like, wharf him because he's like, oh, he's so tough, but look, he can't, like,
he's
be
so
on the boat.
Strong and aggro. Yeah, and then we have
you've got, like, Cliff Curtis, who viewers would know him from. He played, I think his name is Billy in Dr. Sleep. He was like Ewan McGregor's friend.
Mm-hmm.
He plays like this, like the super horny guy who, like, every word out of his mouth is like, yeah, I can't wait to get off this job so I can get a bunch of ladies. You know, everything. He's always like, and he sees like a poster of like a Sports Illustrated model, and he's like, "Ugh," later in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, everything about him is just horny. That's his whole thing.
Terminally horny is what we call that in movies.
Yeah, you get this British guy named Mulligan, who's just like the suave, turtlenecked British dude. You've got Clifton Powell plays Mason, who's like the. Unfortunately, this movie does kind of do the, like, token black guy thing where it's like, well, and then these guys are here and they'll die really early.
Mm-hmm.
Although we said it wasn't as problematic dialogue wise, but there were still some tropes that we were dealing with.
Oh yeah, tropes are unfortunately unavoidable at this time period of movie making, but I don't think they, like, discredit or, like,
no
make any negative commentary on his character. I think he dies in a very realistic, unfortunate fashion.
No, it's actually funny. Mason's character was written to die way earlier in the movie, but Summers he was like, but I kind of want to be around for more. I feel like my character, like, I wouldn't die right away. And he was like, well, tell you what, you're gonna, like, later in the movie, there's gonna be a lot of, like, underwater stunts. He's like, if you can act and swim underwater, then I'll write your character, like, way deeper into the movie. And he was like, yeah, I can do that. But then it turns out he was, like, actually, like, terrified of murky water, which they ended up being in for most of the time. So he was like, yeah, I could do it. And then was like, fuck.
That's so unfortunate. That specifically because he can't swim and has problems in murky water.
He was like, I can swim,
do it.
But he was, like, specifically afraid of, like, murky water that you can't see in.
Yeah.
And I was like,
well, buddy.
Whoops. So yeah, you get a bunch of, like, fun characters. And then, you know, after an introduction to them, also at some point, I think, like, right in that first scene too, the character of Joey, like, is, like, sneaking around because he's, like, suspicious of the people that have hired them, and then he gets caught and beat up. Like, right at the beginning of the movie, they fight him and just kick the shit out of him
after he's already been, like, negged on by the captain, his own girlfriend, and the captain of the mercenaries. Yeah,
and so second, like, storyline that we're following, we cut from Finnegan and the crew, then we go to the ship is the Argonautica, which is a crazy name for a ship that looks very. In the movie has a little title sequence, a little scroll that tells us we're, like, off the coast of, like, the South Asian Sea. We're in, like, Indonesia or something. The ship on the outside and on the inside is very Asian inspired. There's lots of, like, dragons. There's, like, you know, the, like,
lots of red.
What are
lots of red.
What are those? The drums? I know this is Japanese, but, like, you know, the, like,
the big drums. I don't know what they're called, but they're big.
But there's a big display, a lot of cultural appropriation happening. So you'd imagine it would be like the Golden Dragon, you know, or something. But it's like the Argonautica, and it's like, where did that name come from? And why did you do this theme if you were going to name it that? But either way, the ship is gigantic, right? It's like a huge luxury cruise liner. I think we have boats that are this big, like, now.
Oh, we do. Yeah.
But at the time, I don't think there was anything. I think it was kind of like we were in the same era of the Poseidon Adventure, where we're like, look how big boats will never be this big. But then we were like, then Disney was like, well, we made 4 of them. So
yeah.
But it's this huge boat, and we get this really cool scene. Like you said, the inside of the cruise ship looks cool. We have this, like, multi-story party that's happening, and everybody's going nuts. The waitresses are smooching. There's just, like, all this eye candy to look at. There's, like, things happening all over the place, and the whole time we're tracking Famke Janssen's character, whose name is Trillian, which is a reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Crazy thing to be like, let me just put this in my main mainstream action adventure.
Well, I thought it was funny because her name is Trillian, but in the movie it sounds like they're saying trillion, like the numerical value.
Trillion,
and I thought, it's funny to have like a thief whose name is Trillian.
Yeah, right.
I thought that was cute, and then I found out it was a different name, kind of, and I was like, that's not as fun. So maybe I'll use it in the future.
This is Millions Billions.
Millions?
She's an undercover thief who's boarded the ship to steal all the monies.
But yeah, so Trillian is Trillian St. James too is her full name, which is crazy. But so Trillian's kind of like swaggering her way around the boat. We're seeing her from behind. Famke Janssen swinging that thing around, and we see over the course of this big long like tracking shot we're doing, we see that she's like a pickpocket. She's like, this is where we learn that she's a thief, and there's lots of good show not tell stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
Which is always appreciated, and just there's so much stuff to look at, and I feel like this movie has like, it's weird because it's like nonstop, like a character will stop talking and we immediately cut away to someone else talking and doing stuff, but at the same time I don't feel like claustrophobic. I still feel like there's so much room for the characters to breathe in this movie, even though it's like so nonstop. Yeah, it just feels so full, and you're like, there's so much stuff to look at. Like, no matter what's happening, like I'm hearing something funny, or a character is being developed, or like something cool is happening in the background.
Yeah, it's paced really expertly in a way that a lot of these movies either have way too much downtime or not enough downtime, and it's like perfectly timed. Yeah. Like every scene we're going to, something's happening, and then boop, we're out of there. We're going on to the next thing because there's enough characters where we can kind of like move around the ship and see something new every time we like.
Yeah,
to bring it back up with them.
To bring it back to the clothes changing scene that Trillian does, like the characters are having like a serious discussion of like what the plan is going to be to deal with this monster they're fighting, and they're in this like
they're in the machine shop.
Yeah, they're in this machine shop,
cruise ship,
and so there's all this stuff to look at, and all at the same time, in addition to the set and the dialogue that's happening and the story progressing. Again, Trillian is doing her own thing, getting dressed in the background. So there's just like stuff to look at and just like live in this movie that really doesn't happen as much anymore. It was really a 90s era thing where just I feel like a lot of the time in movies the world felt more realized, even though special effects and stuff, like we didn't have these like Ant-Man into the quantum verse, like all these things. It's like, oh look, you could never even imagine the stuff we have on screen, but it feels so less like alive than like an arguably infinitely smaller like set and scale and scope. It just feels there's more stuff. And so and this opening scene really demonstrates that, because you just like have so much stuff to look at. There's like 400 extras that were on set for this. And not only were tons of them extras, but a ton of them were like stunt people, because at some point the ship gets like knocked about and all of these people just go tumbling, and it's like it's like shot of like 12 people going over a railing and through glass and rolling down a hallway.
It reminded me of that one scene from what is it, Ghost Ship, where the entire deck full of people gets cut in half and like a bunch of people die all over the ship.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
and all practical, because it's all stunt people. There's no CGI cartoon dudes like rolling around,
No, it was honestly really refreshing to see, because there was that one shot where they're like running down one of the hallways and people are just getting trampled from the front of the pack.
You see a lady get full on like head stepped on.
Yeah, oh, it's gnarly, but it looks great.
Yeah, you don't get that anymore because we're so heavily reliant on CG, which doesn't like feel like anything.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't want to know that like some extra unfortunately got fucking trampled into a coma on set.
No, that's bad.
So there's a safety concern there, but it looks fucking great. It looks so good.
Honestly though, if I were a stunt person, what I would want to like risk getting hurt like to make a movie look cool. I mean, isn't that their whole thing? Like we risk, like we're gonna like crash a car like 80 miles an hour while I'm in it, so the movie can look cool. Like that's their whole shtick, right? So that's like part of the territory. yeah, so we get this cool, opening scene, both different vibes, but we get a really, really quality introduction to so many characters, and we understand everything like right away. After those introductions, we get some scenes of so we get Trillian. She steals like a key card from the captain so she can sneak into his private quarters because there's like a safe that she's trying to break into.
That's where the vault is, where everybody's like fancies are.
Yeah, but she gets caught because the captain and the owner of the ship, the Simon Canton, played by Anthony Heald. So Canton and the captain find her and they're like, haha, we're gonna lock you in. They say we were gonna put you in the brig, but it's not finished. Which I'm like, well, you probably shouldn't have set sail.
Yeah, you shouldn't have taken
your parts of the boat aren't done.
Yeah, your maiden voyage shouldn't have been like, well, there's parts of the ship that still need to be built. Like,
hey, they got it. They got it. They've already spent too much money. They're hemorrhaging over here.
I guess you're right. That is part of the plot.
So they stick her in the cupboard, right, where there's just the larder, like the storage closet.
Yeah, it's just like a food store.
Yeah, they just put her in there. They're like, "This is jail for you now." It's funny because, and then we get another fun set of scenes where every once in a while we'll cut back to Trillian and she's eating. Well, she's just sitting on carrots, eating some chocolate, And it's like, why did we show that? I don't know, because it's funny. And meanwhile, while that's happening, back aboard Finnegan's boat, we have the Hanson and his crew have hacked into, or not. No, it's because it's a
plant.
There's a plant, right? They have Joey discovers there's a bunch of warheads on the boat. Turns out they brought a bunch of crates filled with torpedoes, and he's like, this seems very dangerous. Meanwhile, the Argonautica, we see a mysterious figure has shuts down all of the systems, right? And takes the 8 CDs that the boat runs on, ejects them all, and then the boat's like, oh no, my Windows keys. It's all trials of AOL online, right? It's like, oh no, I can't connect to the internet. So the Argonautica shuts down mysteriously, and then we get a really weird underwater point of view of something swimming into the engines of the boat, and that's when the boat takes this big hit and everyone goes tumbling. So then we go back to, that's all we see of that boat for a while. Then we go back to the crew.
There is one shot before we get back to the crew though that had me hooting and fucking rolling on the couch, because everyone's running in terror as the ship starts getting rocked back and forth, and a woman runs into the fucking bathroom. And she's sitting on the toilet, and then all of a sudden she just gets sucked off screen, and blood just fucking fountains up everywhere.
She gets sucked through the toilet, and
oh
blood
my
just
God.
Splatters the whole room. And so after some confrontation between Finnegan and the mercenaries and stuff, they eventually find their way to the Argonautica, because they, at some point during the attack, the Argonautica loses one of its lifeboats, which drifts off, and then in the dead of night, the Finnegan's crew, they don't see it, and they run into it, and apparently the lifeboat was filled with TNT because it explodes so violently that for the rest of the movie, Finnegan's boat has a movie theater screen sized hole in it.
Just in the side of the hull, yeah.
Which, they try to deal with. Luckily, none of those warheads fucking blew up and annihilated them. But yeah, so they eventually drift their way to the Argonautica, and they're like, oh, how convenient, we found the boat. So then the crew gets on, and they're like, nope, Finnegan and Joey, you got to come with us, leave the girl here to fix the boat, because she's the mechanic, right?
Can we talk about the guns for a minute?
Oh, yeah.
They unveil this fucking cache of weapons. They're like, these are our super fancy
super
guns.
Boat robbing guns.
They're watertight so that they can shoot when they get wet. Mm-hmm. They have spinning barrels, and they have these big chunky fucking revolver Gatling gun style firing mechanisms. So when you pull the trigger,
hold 1,000 rounds.
Which we just make. This is just video game shit. Mm-hmm. The way they treat ammo in this fucking movie is yeah, whatever. The gun never runs out.
One thing, if you're annoyed by just guns going off in movies, this one's not for you, because the characters are just blasting the entire time with their infinite ammo guns with
They're blasting forever. They're never reloading, and they're constantly showing us like side profiles and like undershots of the gun where like you can clearly see an empty fucking like magazine slide where it's like, this gun has nothing in it. What are we doing?
And so our intrepid heroes and mercenaries, they end up on the boat, right? But immediately they're like, well, something's wrong, because even though the boat was supposed to be turned off, they can't find anybody. It's supposed to be loaded with people. They can't find anybody. The lifeboats are all still there, -1.
-1.
And so they're like, man, something feels fishy here. And this is where, now we're in alien territory, right? Because the mercenary, the group is there. Everyone's like sneaking around. Like, but what's one fun thing that I find out about this movie is that, like, unlike in Aliens, where they are, even though they're all goofballs, they're generally like competent mercenaries. Like, they're good at their job. They just can't fight a xenomorph, because who could fight a bunch of xenomorphs?
Yeah.
In this movie, the mercenaries, the more they're on screen, you're like, these are all goobers.
They're
like,
idiots.
Even Hanover, who's supposed to be this like gruff, quiet, contemplative, like badass evil guy, even by the end of like his time in the movie, you're like, oh, he's not even really good at his job. Like, it feels like there's like the B team where it's like, oh, this dude, he was too in the hole from his boat. He couldn't even hire the good mercenaries to do the fraud,
He cheaped out on his mercenaries to do his
out.
fucking boat sinking. Yeah.
Despite their weird magic guns that they procured, they're still like...
There's this scene where, like, right around here where they get on the boat and they start realizing, like, oh, where is everybody? I got blood over here. I got blood over here too, but nobody's on the boat. What's happening? They're all starting to get paranoid, and they move into this room where the sound goes off and they all open fire like...
yeah, they're like startled.
They have infinite ammo.
Yeah, they're like startled, and it's just like, ah. And then there's like a funny gag where Finnegan and Joey show up, and Finnegan's like, hey, hey, hey. And then they stop shooting, and he goes, quiet. And then there's like a beat, and then the guys go, ha ha, and start firing again. And it's like, why?
We're just shooting at nothing for fun.
Yeah, because
in the middle of the
like,
job.
Whoa, look how cool our guns are. You said it while we were watching it. It's like the
It's just like the scene from Predator where the thing goes off in the bush and they all open fire and like rip apart the jungles because they all heard like one noise. And it's like, guys.
Yeah, it's like, all right, calm down.
Yeah, unless these things are like super soakers, like they're gonna run out of ammo. Like, what are you doing?
It's so funny. Yeah, so I think after that, eventually all of the characters meet up, right? So the mercenaries stumble upon the like safe. I think they're going to like, all right, we don't know where anybody is. Let's open the safe. They crack it open, and poor Djimon Hansu is the guy who opens it, and he immediately, like, the thing goes, and you just hear, ah! And he gets hit square in the dome with a fire axe and dies instantly.
I was so surprised by this kill.
So funny.
And I mean, I should have known
it's a great
something
kill.
was going to happen, but I really didn't expect like these goobers to fall out of this safe and immediately take out the most threatening guy on the squad.
These incompetent delinquents,
yeah.
Right? Yeah, because what happens is, so Simon Canton, the builder of the ship, and the captain, and 3 other people made just to die, have holed themselves up in the safe. And when the thing opened, Canton immediately, just in defense of, assuming that a monster is about to get in, just goes swinging with the fire axe. I can't believe the first mercenary of the movie goes out like this.
Like
right?
this, yeah.
But then, so that scares the mercenaries, who then open fire. Canton and the captain dive out of the way, and just 3 random background actors get absolutely lit up.
Just completely Swiss cheesed.
Eventually, the firing stops, and the whole crew kind of like gets together now, and this is where like exposition happens. Everybody learns what's happening. Canton tries to say that the creatures at some point are like, we didn't know what he was saying, right? It's like some sort of ancient worm that I looked into later. I forget what the name was, but they apparently were these gigantic like worms that existed that would get like they would get bigger the further
down
they get.
Go, yeah.
But he's obviously talking like about a mythical version of like, oh well, if it's been alive this long and it was this deep, it could be huge. And so it's trying to explain that like there's these worms that he thinks are attacking. I think that I found out
like
that the
prehistoric though. They're like not. We don't have anything.
No, we do have a. Have you ever heard of the bobbit worm?
No.
They're these like little.
Do I Google it now?
Yeah, they're crazy. They're like these little worms that hang out at the bottom. They bury themselves deep in the sand, and they kind of look like an anemone. And when stuff goes past them, they like shoot up and grab it.
Oh no!
And the bobbit worm actually does look fairly similar to the creatures we deal with in the movie.
It does.
Yeah, it's a real life monster. They're just not that huge.
Oh my god!
But they're big enough to be terrifying.
Oh. God, it honestly looks worse in real life.
Less cartoony. That's what makes it worse.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that's like the bobbit worm is the closest thing in relative to the thing he's referencing in this movie.
Okay.
And so from the captain and Canton getting together with the crew, after that they stumble upon Trillian, who has broken out of the vegetable patch that they locked her in. And eventually everybody gets together, obviously. There's like some immediate chemistry between Finnegan and Trillian, obviously, because the movie has to have them get together.
It was one of those like where they meet up and then they both look each other up and down instantly. And it was like...
Hey. Trust me, lady, it ain't any better out there.
I'm out of here.
Will you relax?
The door is closing.
Who the hell are you?
Who the hell are you?
I think she broke my nose.
Yeah, give me a chance to break the rest of your face. Not that anyone would notice.
What is this about?
It was like magic. Like their brains melted like, oh, we're fucking that.
And they really don't even say all that much to each other over the course of the movie. It's classic like movie magic. Like, oh, just because they're in love. One thing I really like about Trillian Famke Jensen's character is that she, like everybody basically in this movie that isn't Finnegan, is also kind of incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's just successful enough of a thief to have not gotten caught up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
But basically the first thing she does in the movie is get caught.
Yeah.
And, like, she's kind of ditzy, but not, like, sexist ditzy. There's just certain times where she's, like, she gets swept up in, like Finnegan's, like, suave charm, like, and she's like, oh, he's kind of smiling.
Oh, he's kind of
She,
funny.
like, every once in a while,
He's
she,
so
like, breaks
cute.
composure of, like, the femme fatale thief, and she's like, oh. But not in like I don't know. It didn't feel like...
Despite the red dress, she's no Carmen Sandiego, right? Like,
yeah, it just, it's just a unique character that's like mostly tropes, but the combination of it like makes it fun for me. Yeah, she's just... And again, just like everybody in the movie, she's bad at what she does, which I think is just tons of fun. But yeah, I like that her chemistry with Finnegan and with Joey. They instantly are like... three little peas in a
homies,
pod.
yeah.
They're very funny. The whole time, Joey's character is making such funny... We said it before, the director liked his ad-libbing so much that he brought him on for all his other movies. But he just does some funny stuff in this movie. There's like one part where they're like running... I don't know when it is, but they're like running away from the monster. And he just, out of nowhere, and this was ad-libbed, he just goes...
Can you just get asthma? Or do you have to be born with it?
it's funny, they all look at him like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? But it's funny, he's like the only real guy.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like more of an action character, and he's the only real human in the thing that is like, everything he says, I'm like, I feel that.
Yeah,
I feel that.
Exactly. But everybody is constantly shitting on him, including the movie. Like, he's getting battered around. Actually, the scene in the very beginning where the mercenaries beat him up, apparently in real life, they got a little too rowdy, and at the end of that day, he went home and like couldn't move. He was so bruised and like battered.
Jeez.
So it's like,
poor guy.
Even in the movie, like the real life, he was fucking getting shit on by this movie. There's like another part where he goes to like the Hanover has like a grenade and he's gonna throw it. He has two grenades and he's gonna throw them at the monster, and he's like, "Give me one of those." And Joey grabs it and throws it. And Hanover's like, "You idiot!" And then Hanover does like this 6-button press combination on the grenade to turn it on and throw it. And Joey's like, "Well, you didn't tell me to do that."
He's just like the Charlie Brown quote of like, I got a rock
Yeah.
as a person.
He's so fun. And, you know, all the other characters are so fun, but this is when they start dying off, right? Because we're like rummaging through the ship. We are aware that there's something on here, but nobody has seen it yet.
Yeah, we got to find our machine parts to fix our boat and then get off of this boat. That's their mission.
That's the mission. And yeah, the magical machine parts, right? The MacGuffinist MacGuffin, or it's like indescript machine parts.
Yeah.
And so all the people start getting picked off. I think after Hansu's character, I think it's the Australian seasick guy. His name's T-Ray, which is very funny. He gets, pulled off screen and like a bunch of fun Kool-Aid splatters all over the place. Who else dies? Cliff Curtis's character, Mahmoudi, he got to. I was really hoping he would get like, like the snakes on a plane guy gets his dick bitten by a snake.
Oh,
he was so horny,
lucky.
he needed like a penis related death, but he just kind of gets pulled off screen too.
Is it this point that we finally get to like a good look at one of these tentacles? Because they drop the
no, it's actually a little bit after that. So once there's another funny they're riding on an elevator, and it's like a funny comedic break in the movie where the whole team is in an elevator, and like it goes to like it like drops a little bit and scares everybody, and it's like this tense moment, and then it's relieved, and it's broken. Silence is broken by a girl from Ipanema starts playing. It's like bah, 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 bah. And everyone's like but then the elevator falls like the whole length of the ship, and magically everybody's fine. Like the door blows off when it hits the bottom, and everyone just tumbles out like Scooby-Doo characters. And everyone's like, oh, we're good.
But man, they fall out into a fucking nightmare hallway.
Yes, it's after
God.
So there's this hallway that is filled with like skeletons that are coated in, I mean, it looks like bubblegum and spaghetti sauce.
They're just so gooped up. The goop fucking budget
it looks
on
so
this
good.
was insane.
Like, I've never seen like goopy skeletons look quite this way, and it's because we find out the monster like eats people whole and like digests them in like alive, and then like
farts out the bones.
Yeah, but it like farts them out like half like eaten. So there's all these skeletons just dripping with this gross like bubblegum pasta sauce like glop that's all over them. Funny fact, I learned this is from the dead meat kill count for this movie was invaluable. But there was apparently the guy who made all the sculpts for the skeletons made a skeleton of Mickey Mouse and hid it on set in that hallway somewhere. I don't know if you can see it in the movie, but the knowledge that it's there is fun.
That is fun.
And it's after this scene they get through this gross hallway, and they get into this next room, and that's where we get the big reveal of the big CGI reveal where they like look up and it's like a sea of tentacles above them. It's in their like beams and rafters and stuff, and it looks pretty cool. It looks like big and scary and like
there's
massive.
like gigantic slugs. They look so slimy and goopy, and there's like a really cool shot as like part of the tentacle kind of like writhes past them. You see somebody's hand reaching from like inside the tentacle, pressing against the inside of it. Oh, it looks great.
And it actually ends up being one of the dudes. I think it was just all the mercenaries have like funky names except for this guy whose name is just Billy. And Billy is the one who gets farted out, but he is even less like he's still alive, and you get this really, really cool scene of him. He's like he stands up and he's like begging for help. He's like, "Ugh!" And he looks like he's so dissolved. He's got holes all over his body. Half his head is missing. He's like dripping.
You can see like right through the palm of his hand.
To
you
his
see the
face
bones.
and stuff, and you feel the bone.
It's great.
It's really good. I mean, it is very CGI heavy, but I'd say it's one of those rare times where it still holds up like pretty well.
Yeah,
I think it looks awesome. It's such a good scene. Everybody's terrified, right? Everyone is going like nuts now because now we have the full reveal. This is when we start blasting this thing indiscriminately. The guns go nuts for the rest of the movie.
No aim.
No aim.
Shooting from the hip. just praying.
And then just it's a bunch of like hip firing, like left, right, left, right, left, right, and then we cut to like a CGI tentacle going, getting like blasted apart. And then every once in a while, they'll be like from off screen to like the right or left of the actors, they'll be like yellow like squibs just been
just blasting all over.
Yeah, it really is like this is the guns section of the movie where it's just like we're blasting, we're swimming, we're blasting, we're in another hallway, we're shooting. But the whole time it's fun because everybody's saying funny things and doing funny stuff.
And ended up finding weird shit. Everyone like I feel like everybody ends up in like a weird spot of the ship at some point.
Yeah, all
like,
the characters get sort of like split up at different times in the movie, and we get like little 2-on-2, interactions between different people, which is fun. So like Hanover and Joey end up together, and then Trillian and Finnegan are split off. This is where we get a scene where Joey and Hanover are like running for their lives from the and a lot of the monster chasing people in this movie is just sort of like stuff under the surface of the water, like shooting it up, so you're not actually seeing like the CGI tentacles or anything. A lot of it is like there's a shot that is directly ripped off from, not even ripped off because the cinematographer was the same guy, but like straight from The Thing, where there's a scene of like the little metal grates on the ground that like blast off as the thing like goes underneath it.
Yeah.
Same thing happens in this movie with the tentacles and these like grates, water shoots up. But again, it was the same guy, so I don't think it's stealing.
But I will say the couple scenes that we do have where like the tentacles chasing down the hallway, it's always like cool. They turn a corner and the tentacles will just like flop into the hallway and then start to like surge, and it's fucking cool. They look
cool.
good. Can we talk about the mouths on these things?
Yeah, well, they have. Well, if listeners want to check out the thing, the gross thing I was telling Eric about, the bobbit worm, I think is a really accurate representation of what these things are.
It's kind of like if you put two of those worms together, because it has like a horizontal style predator mouth where it's got like the two like pincer things that kind of open up. But then even that opens up to expose like more like gross finger things, and then a big teethy, like almost like human looking teeth.
Yeah, it's sort of like if you took a tentacle and then stuck a predator mouth on the end and then put an alien mouth on the inside.
Yes.
So they're pretty cool. And so we get a scene where like Hanover and Joey are running from one, and Hanover's like, we're going to have to distract it. And Joey's like, distract it with what? And then Hanover just like shoots him in the leg and then runs past him. And Joey's like, God damn it. And
they're not even in like a fast chase scene. That's what I love. They're like up to their knees in water and they're slogging through. And he's like, what are we going to feed this thing? And he goes, huh. And he very uncomfortably pulls his like pistol out, turns back and blasts him in the leg. And
it's
he's
so
like,
funny. By this point, it's like the 700th shit this movie has taken on Joey. He manages to escape death by like he crawls into a dumbwaiter, and then later we get back and the two meet up again, where Joey he sees like a gun on the ground in like a poker room, and he goes to grab the gun, and he's like stopped by like Hanover, who's like leaned over the table, and he's like, ugh, and then you pull out and you see that he's like half in the mouth of one of these tentacle things, and it's so funny because Joey takes the gun, leaves, and then feels bad, like, oh, I should give him the gun to help him. At the very least, he can like kill himself before he's dissolved whole. So then Joey comes back into the room with all the tentacles, gives him the gun, and says, don't say I never gave you anything, and then goes to leave. And before he can leave the room, Hanover's trying to shoot at him, and he's like, you son of a bitch! And then he runs off screen, and Hanover's like, oh, okay, now I guess I'll kill myself, but now doesn't have any more bullets because he wasted the last one to troll Joey one more time in the movie.
Which I'm glad he did. It had me roaring. I was cracking up at that bit.
Because the movie never stops shitting on the character, and it just gets funnier and funnier and funnier. So each time they take
no reason, like
he
for no reason,
deserve
it at all.
No, he's like the comic relief, but it's like they take it to like such an extreme level with him. It's hilarious. Meanwhile, all that time, Trillian and Finnegan are just flirting it up, right? They're like, they're making deals. Like, Trillian's like, I'll make you a deal. You get me off this boat, and take me with you. And you even get a scene where Finnegan's like, and I can have whatever I want. And you get like this like scummy, where you're like, oh, he just wants to fuck her. And even she is like, she's disappointed, and she's like, yeah, whatever you want, I'll fuck you, I guess. But then he goes, well, I'd like a cold beer. Can you get me one of those? And she's like, that's funny, Finnegan.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
you're like,
he's
oh my
got the
god,
riz.
these two are so fucking cheesy. If this movie wasn't so good, I'd be like, bleh. But yeah, so they have their like little moments and stuff, and eventually the three meet back up, and I think they are now they lost the parts at some point, which is like, well, what was all this for?
Mm-hmm. They have to devise an alternative plan because they're like, oh fuck, the machine parts we needed to get off are now gone. We lost those because the tentacles took them. Fuck.
Yeah. I don't know if it's before all of the other mercenaries die or after, but eventually they do stumble upon the main atrium, and it is like filled with the more of those gloppy skeletons.
It's so many corpses.
It's
so
one of the biggest,
corpses.
like grossest looking body counts I've ever seen in a horror movie, honestly.
It looks like something out of Society where it's just like there's so much like gore and viscera and bodies that you're like, you can barely see where like one starts and the other one stops, but it all looks so good.
Yeah, and so this is when they're like, Finnegan's like, I've got a new plan, and then it's like now we've all split up again. Trillian has to go get a jet ski key.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny. The jet skis weirdly, I don't know why I found this very funny. The jet skis are all called ski-doos, which I think is a funny word.
Well, Sea-Doos, I know Sea-Doo is a specific
or Sea-Doos.
Yeah, that's
is
like
that what they are?
That's a specific brand of
like jet water ski or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, so
I'm
that makes
familiar
sense
with the
then.
Sea-Doo.
But it's so funny, a Sea-Doo.
Sea-Doo.
Finnegan has to like do something. He sets something up on the boat with him and Joey, and then he's like, all right, I have to go like check on Trillian.
We get one of our 500 shitty monitors on the boat where it's like you see this kind of course of like a big U shape.
Mm-hmm.
So he's planning to run his boat out around
Filled with torpedoes.
Yeah, and back into the boat that they're on.
Yeah, his plan is to destroy his boat, end the monster in the process, and get the Sea-Doo. Because at some point they like look out on the sea, and they can see that there's an island like within eyesight, right? So they're like, oh, we'll go to that island, we'll get one of these Sea-Doos, I'll blow everything up. That's sort of the plan. Finnegan leaves Joey on the boat to finish setting everything up. He goes to help Trillian, who ends up getting in a scuffle because at some point they lose the builder of the boat, the designer guy. I keep forgetting his fucking name. Ken. So he went missing at some point. Had his own little run-ins with the monster. But now, and he's also been very antagonistic the whole movie with Trillian because he caught her stealing. So he's like, you're like, I don't have any fucking reason to like you.
Yeah.
But because he's such a snivelly guy, even though his reasoning for not liking her is like understandable, you're like, well, he's a fucking asshole.
Yeah, I mean, everybody even shit on him already because they're like, oh, this
Well, it is his
motherfucker
fault,
tried to
'cause-
sell us out to the insurance companies. Fuck this guy.
Yeah, I guess we skipped over it. We said it, but we didn't really describe it. So his whole plan, the reason why these mercenaries were hired was because he was going to sabotage the boat. He was the mysterious figure who took all the AOL CDs out. His plan was to sabotage the boat, get it hijacked by pirates and destroyed. He would, in theory, everybody would be evacuated onto the lifeboats and nobody would die. He does say that he didn't intend for anyone to die.
He's like, I'm not a barbarian. I'm just a fraudster.
Yeah, so he was just collecting the insurance money on the boat because it was just too expensive to sustain. Even with all the 400 plus 1% people, he still couldn't. It's like the Star Wars hotel all
And
over
you should be
again.
pushing those drinks. Everybody knows that. It's all
It's
about the drink package.
Well, it's probably all inclusive, right? You know? And so, yeah, so they already shit on him because they were, well, this is all your fault. Even though, like, how could he know that he was going to turn the boat off right over the lair of the Leviathan, right?
It's
Like,
just a bad idea.
it is a bad idea, but it wasn't, I mean, in theory, it was going to be a lot less problematic of, you know.
I would say on paper, it's a relatively pretty standard grift for a rich guy to be like,
Yeah,
you know
I
what,
mean,
let me just fuck up
it's
my
just
investment
your classic
for
insurance fraud,
money.
you
Yeah.
know? But so he split off from the group, had his own little run-ins with the creature. Eventually, Trillian, as she goes to get the Sea-Doo key, he shows back up and he's like, I'm gonna kill you. Like, and now I'm like, well, I don't know why you're going this far. Like,
yeah, don't do that.
maybe I think she has the last key or something. Maybe there's a reason he needs the Sea-Doo and he doesn't want her to take it. But he also whips out this double-barreled flare gun, which
It's
is like,
a
why
double-barrel.
Why do we have a sawed-off double-barreled flare gun?
It looks absolutely fucking crazy because it's essentially just like two very skinny metal pipes next to each other on a firing mechanism and like a grip. And I was looking at it, I'm like, who the fuck needs this?
Yeah, why is this on
Why
the
would this
boat?
exist?
Yeah, it doesn't make any.
It doesn't look like it could
It's so
sustain
funny.
any type of like projectile being launched from it. It looks like it would just explode your hand off your fucking
The fantasy
shoulder.
firearms in this movie are so fun. They're so fun. And so Trillian and Canton, get in a scuffle. He's terrible at killing Trillian.
He very quickly realizes how shitty it is to try and fire a flare gun in an attempt to kill anyone.
Yeah, and right before he does get the pounce on her eventually, and he's about to like flare gun her head off, but then he gets walloped by Finnegan, who shows up to save. He does manage to scurry away, right? And he gets off
In a very Looney Tunes fashion.
Yes, he does. The movie becomes. This is now the tail end of the movie becomes very. We stop. We're like done with horror. It's like action, right?
Yeah.
Because so after Finnegan and Trillian meet up, Canton scurries away. Trillian and Finnegan leave. They end up in the main, in an atrium of some sort, and we finally get like the boss reveal, right?
Yeah.
Because they stumble into this room, and now it's like revealed that we weren't dealing with worms the whole time. They really were tentacles. Like they were all these creatures they've been fighting were just appendages. Apparently, the infinite amount of appendages of this like huge octopus creature that has like it's like got a maw filled with like dozens of teeth, and it's got a weirdly human face for some reason.
I would say if it wasn't for the tentacles that had mouths on them, I would say it looks like a very standard Kraken-esque thing.
Totally.
But the addition of the tentacles that
The
have
predator
mouths at the
alien
end,
mouth
yeah,
tentacles?
I think it really sets this guy apart.
Yeah, his head is basic, but he's got the tools to set himself apart from the rest.
Yeah.
And this is like we get a full CGI sequence where like Treat Williams gets lifted up by the creature, and he's in like the CGI tentacle grip, which never looks good. Even
No.
like to this day, we
No,
still
it looks
can't get
bad.
that looking right. But he, it's so funny because the creature is like, haha, let me get a look at you. You've shot a bunch of my tentacle children. Now
Yeah,
I'm
he
gonna
brings
eat
him up
you."
real close
Brings
to
him,
his
like
eyeball.
literally like pulls Finnegan like right up to his eyeball, and Finnegan is like, he reaches over his back, pulls out of his sawed-off shotgun, does like an action hero phrase, and just blasts this creature's eye. Gets splurted by gunk. but actual gunk, again, it's funny because he blasts the creature in the eye. It's a CGI hit. The monster reels back, and then cut back to him. And then from off screen, we get real, not CGI goop that's just being shot out of a cannon at him.
Yeah, they just blast him with like a fucking half gallon of KY.
like, but with like yellow food dye in it. It's
Yeah.
gross. It's so thick. It's nasty. But yeah, so basically that gets Finnegan out of its grasp, and he's able to meet back up with Trillian, and they like skedaddle out of there. They make their way back to the Sea-Doo. Meanwhile, Canton is like, oh, he's made his way to the surface of the boat. That's what he says, right? To the whole movie.
Pretty much.
He makes his way to the to the top side of the boat. He sees
Finnegan's boat.
or
He hops
oh no,
on.
not yet. Sorry, yeah, because first Trillian and Finnegan get back to his boat to meet up with Joey so they can all get out of there, and the window's busted out. Joey's nowhere to be seen. I think like a bit of his clothes are
His
like
hat.
his
There's
hat, his
Goop
dumb
on his hat and the keyboard in the
and
cockpit.
It's like, oh no, the movie took its final shit on Joey. He's gone. And so they're sad, but they're like, well, all right, there's only 2 people can fit on a Sea-Doo anyway, so it actually works out pretty well.
Yeah.
And so they leave, they get in the Sea-Doo, and this is where we get like, there's and this is like straight out of Resident Evil 4's like I think Resident Evil 4 seriously aped this movie with the end because they're literally driving a jet ski through the hallways of this sinking boat. It's awesome. Tentacles are coming at him. You get this hilarious. I love this part. So they're driving the jet ski down. It's like a video game, right?
Yeah.
Where you got to like press A to jump over the obstacle and then duck under this obstacle. It's like whoop, 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 whoop. And meanwhile, these tentacles are racing behind them and they're getting too close. And so Finnegan's like, I got my shotgun. And he like, so Trillion's behind him. He's got the shotgun over both their shoulders. He blasts it, but he needs to reload. So he just goes, which is like, I was like, oh my God, this is such a 90s action movie scene. Just cock it. And
It's so good.
And Famke Janssen's like, it's such like it really encompasses why people watch dumb action movies. You just get like a hot girl, a hot guy. He's got a shotgun, and they're just in tandem firing it while he goes cock it. Like, it's like, come on, this is a movie.
I love the way like every time they come to like a corridor or a corner, he just like drifts that fucking
dude. It's awesome.
jet ski so hard.
It's so good. It's so fun. It's so stupid and absurd, especially because like he'll lose the tentacles and then he'll round a corner and there's more tentacles that way. He goes woof, and like turns on a dime and goes back the way he came. Eventually, we hit. Of course, the chase has to end with a big ramp that he launches the jet ski off of.
So as they're in the hallways, like trying to outrun the tentacles, Hanover jumps down like from multiple decks up onto Finnegan's ship.
He finally gets to the surface.
Yeah, and then he's like, oh fuck, everybody's gone. I'm gonna take off in this ship, not realizing it's on like a crash course U-turn back into the cruise ship. So he's like cackling and he's happy as he could be until he realizes the boat's starting to make a turn, and he's like, no, wait, no, uh-oh. And it drives torpedo. They like angle the torpedo out of the hole in the bottom of their boat so that it just drives right into the cruise ship and hits it like a fucking nuke.
Dude, and they this is where I think in addition to being like heavily CGI'd up, I think this is like a scale model of the boat that they blow it up. It has that vibe of back when we used to just blow up like little versions of stuff.
Yeah.
It feels like that, and it's the whole boat goes up. Absolutely,
it just turns into 1,000 model rectangles instantly. It just blows the fuck up. And as it's exploding, they're riding the fucking the ramp out of the ship with this huge fireball behind them. Oh my God.
It's so like, good. It's so funny.
Mwah, that's exactly what I wanted.
This is why we watch movies. Now, not scary, but you guys will appreciate it. We promise. It's really
I'm
fun.
telling you, there's a bunch of really good gore. There's a bunch of fun tentacle kills.
The skeletons
it's good.
Alone, the scenes with like the big gloopy skeletons, I think are horrifying enough. And the scene with when Billy is like half digested, like that, those things enough cement this as horror for me, because the real horror movies I've seen plenty of that aren't that like gross and scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now we cut to like the next morning. Trillion and Finnegan have skidooed their way to the island, and this is where the movie gets really on. Like this is where we get another turn, like after turn after turn of this movie. We get to this island, and of course, they're like, "Well, we're stranded. What are we gonna do?" And Trillion like just goes like, "Well, I think we can," I forget what she says, but she basically goes like, "I think we can occupy ourselves." And they start smooching. And then right as they break off their first kiss, like in between them, they like spread apart. And who do we see? We hear some noise. They look over and swim into the shore on a surfboard that was digitally added into the explosion of the boat after the fact. Because I'll tell you in a second. We get our boy Joey, he survived. As he's walking to the shore and they're like, oh, going to help him, he's explaining. He's like, oh, well, let me tell you that the tentacle thing came in the boat and I thought I was done for, but I fought it off and I jumped in the water and I swam and then boom, and then a surfboard almost cut me in half and I took the surfboard and I swam to shore. And are you guys kissing? And that's like the whole end of the movie is them being like, Joey.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, where are we? And then they like turn to the island, and then we get a pan out, and we pan out to the point where like our characters we can't see them. We're so far out from the beach. We see this whole island. It's a vast jungle. There's a volcano in the background. And then all of a sudden we hear like a stomping noises, and like the trees in the jungle start being like knocked over as something massive is heading towards them. And that's where the movie ends. Now, how funny would it be if I told you that apparently this was supposed to be a King Kong reboot backdoor movie?
How? Like a Land of the Lost movie?
Apparently, and I can't confirm this because I found a lot of.
It's funny that we just brought that up in the last episode too.
I kept finding conflicting reports and no actual substantial, like the director says definitively this, but apparently there's a rumor out there that this was supposed to be a bigger, this was supposed to be a successful movie. Summers wasn't going to go do The Mummy because this was supposed to be a secret. Like the monster that comes stomping towards him in the other movie was supposed to be King Kong.
Oh,
they have crash landed on Skull Island was the idea for the movie. Like it was a secret backdoor into a reboot of the King Kong franchise. Now I saw that a bunch of places, but I also saw a lot of like people being like, no one's ever confirmed that. Also, like this movie was made by Disney. King Kong is owned by Universal. Like, it's a whole. How would that work? But apparently, there's like a group of people out there who firmly believe and
they've convinced themselves.
Well, not even. But, the rumor had to come from somewhere. So apparently, it was somewhere along the line, people say this was supposed to be a backdoor reboot for the King Kong movies. Which, could you imagine just these characters, now they're in a King Kong movie for the sequel?
I would love that.
Also, what would you call it? Deep Rising wouldn't make sense anymore.
Oh, they would definitely change the name.
It's like deep, or like, no, if it was today, they would be like, it would be like, Skull Island, a Deep Rising tale.
Yep.
It would be something like that, a Deep Rising story or chapter or something like that. But yeah, apparently, Joey Joey dies in the original cut of the movie. Joey died, and test audiences hated it so much they were like, "No, why'd you kill Joey? You were so mean to him." That they were like, "We have to bring him back." So they had to reshoot the end to include him on the surfboard, and the effects team after the fact had to add in the surfboard to like explain how he found it and then surfed his way to shore.
Could you imagine making this whole movie, all the problems, the flooding in Vancouver, the fucking the up against 2 weeks after the Titanic, and then the test audiences like months before are like, but we like that guy.
Why'd you kill him?
Why don't you go and reshoot the whole ending? So fucking
honestly,
crazy.
I don't think anybody really had too much of a problem with it because everybody seems to really like Kevin J. O'Connor. I mean, Summers put him in all of his other movies.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do think the movie is better off with him living.
Yeah. Oh, agreed.
I think it would have been more fun if his girlfriend also got to like live and like the core crew like ended up together. Also makes it a little more balanced that way. Like poor Joey like loses his girlfriend and honestly like barely even like he has like one scene where he's sad and then the rest of the movie goes back to being a goofball. Because like, can you imagine now you're like marooned on King Kong's Skull Island with these two hot people who have hooked up. Your girlfriend, who arguably was like even hotter, is dead.
Super dead.
You've been shot in the leg. Like, and now you're just what? And now you're like third wheeling it. Like but he's still happy about it.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
Look, he's just thankful to get out of
be
there.
Included.
Yeah.
Right? Oh man. But it's just. That's the movie, man. It is it's so cozy. It's glorious. It's so fun. Like, I just sometimes it's a movie that just like gets you what you need out of a movie. No more, no less.
No.
It despite all odds, they made it, and it's here for us, and it should be a comfort to people, I think.
Yeah, and I wish there was a way that retroactively like movies, like, because it used to be that, like, you know, in the VHS and the DVD kind of market, that movies could really have like a resurgence like financially. And I've heard of like a lot of movies on the back end sales like becoming way more successful.
Yeah.
It's a shame that like stuff at this point in history is just like practically impossible, because either it gets picked up by a streaming service and then like they're not really making a whole shitload of money on residuals that way, or it just sits in limbo and like you have to, you know, go to Blockbuster on the internet and find it.
Yeah, it's weird. I also wonder what some of these actors, the ones who are still with us, because again, unfortunately, our main guy, stoic Captain Finnegan, we lost Treat Williams in 2023.
It's a shame that we didn't get him in more action.
Oh, I agree big time. I wonder what the other actors, how they feel about the movie. Like, I would be really interested to see how like Famke Janssen like feels about being in this movie. Because you know how like fucking Aniston like refuses to acknowledge Leprechaun, right? You know?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if maybe it's because it's much more recent. Like, maybe, I mean,
True.
she can't really escape it, but I wonder how she felt. I know that I've seen quotes from Treat Williams saying that like he absolutely loved being on the set of this movie. He was like, Summers is great. You know, it's been hard work. There was some like crazy days and it was rough, but like he was like, it was a fantastic film. I loved every minute. So like, you know, I wonder, I'm sure, even though he got the shit kicked out of him, I'm sure O'Connor, you know, it looks back fondly enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go check out and see if there's like a commentary or something on this, because honestly, I would watch it again with more insight.
With commentary from the crew. That would be awesome. That's another thing I miss about. It's honestly the main thing I miss about like collecting like DVD sets of stuff is the commentary. You just don't get those anymore.
No,
honestly, I think Netflix. If Netflix added an option like in the subtitle section or something to like, listen to a commentary over there, I would say I actually will pay you $20 a month to be able to do that. To watch a movie and then watch it again, listening to the crew talk about it would be so much value would be there.
If you just stop spending money on making these like shitty
Zack Snyder movies.
Yeah, oh my god. Stop making Rebel Moon.
I mean,
end of sentence. Stop making
Oh
it.
no, actually no, they're not done.
They got it. It's a trilogy.
No, I think it was a duology.
I'm pretty sure they're making another.
Well, I mean, that might be true, but I will tell you that they're re-releasing the R-rated Snyder cut versions of his own movie that he had complete control of.
Just flush that man down the toilet. Flush him down the fucking toilet.
Like,
Give him the tentacles.
Why do you need to release a director's cut of a movie that you had like complete creative? The whole reason you made them was because Netflix was like, do your movie.
What a moron.
At this point, he's just like feeding like a parasitic vampire off of his own fans, where he's just like, I'll make a movie and then I'll make a second version of it that's a little longer, and I'll say that they wouldn't let me have the one I wanted in the first place.
He's like Bungie.
Honestly, yeah, it's like DLC for movies. Zack Snyder's like trying to make movie DLC.
He is making movie DLC. Oh my! He's like the Mass Effect DLC.
Ugh,
it's like, yeah,
so
you got to watch
stupid.
the whole thing again to recontextualize any of this.
Those movies are dumb. Deep Rising, awesome. That's all you need to know this week. Maybe we'll shit on Zack Snyder more next week and really find out who our fans are.
Before we go, I wanted to take a quick minute to talk about some other things we're going to be covering this summer.
Yeah,
just because there's some like fun stuff going on in like the marketing side of things. As far as definitely Long Legs, but Maxine as well. I've seen now, this is like the third or fourth movie, especially like within horror recently, that they've put out like some sort of like interactive like material. So like they put out like a phone line that you could call Maxine, and it was essentially just like a quote from the first movie where she's like, "I will not accept a laugh I don't deserve," and then she hangs up on you, which is like pretty cheesy, but I like that they're making the effort at least to like do anything. But I really wanted to highlight all of the fucking crazy shit that Longlegs has been putting out since the announcement. There's been like 4 or 5 different like fucking ciphers and like coded messages that they keep putting out that are being deciphered online, like the Unabomber or like the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah.
And they keep essentially releasing these like poems from the killer. And they just last week put online this like interactive like website that you can go on and read about the like investigation into the Longlegs killer if you're like foaming at the mouth from this movie the way I am. And it's just so cool. It's got like all of this, like all these little extra things. To me, is how you market a movie. Like, we always complain about the industry putting out these fucking movies where like the trailer gives away like 2/3 of the movie, if not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have Longlegs over here who's been giving us these tiny little snippets of stuff for months.
Or
giving
like,
us all this like extracurricular Now I can't say it right at all. Curricular?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Extracurricular.
And I love that. I think that's great. It engages people into your fantasy, into your little, franchise, or not franchise, into your little, movie. And I think that's fantastic.
Viral marketing is what is really what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I find viral marketing campaigns often to be much more palatable. I would rather, instead of seeing a trailer for Longlegs, which I only watched the very first one and I haven't watched any more because, especially with horror movies, they give away too much. I tend to not watch them. Like, I've only seen the first Maxine trailer. I haven't seen any since then because I don't want to know.
Yeah.
And I would much rather this, like, where you can, Longlegs is coming out and you hear a little tidbit about, like, oh, if you go to this website, and you can go explore, and then you hear it's like world building instead of just showing you what the movie is.
Dumping the movie.
Same thing happened with Smile. Had a hugely successful marketing campaign. And whether or not you liked Smile is irrelevant. You can't deny that their marketing campaign wasn't like absolute fire. Like, they got so many people to see that movie just by like having creepy people like go to baseball games and smile at the fucking camera. Like,
and I'd argue that they're still doing a pretty good viral campaign. I know a lot of people are complaining that we're getting like too much of a trailer from the movie, but I'm like, the only thing we're getting is like a little bit about the pop star that like the movie is about.
Yeah.
And like, I think at some point this week they're releasing like a music video, like a fake music video from that fake pop star.
Yeah. I would much rather, I think that should honestly be the direction that horror movies take for marketing. I think leaving your movie vague enough. I understand like some people really need to be like hit straight in between the eyes with like what the movie is about, but I think you can still be vague enough that you can show like a bare bones trailer and just be creative. Like, why is it so hard to get people to be creative? I don't know, but I think Longlegs has been doing a great job. I'm really, really stoked for it. And even though I only kind of just like watched you like interact with the marketing, I still think it's awesome.
It's great. And on the subject, there's been some recent news about the It Follows sequel.
Oh, wasn't it called like They Follow, or did they change it back?
That's something else.
Oh.
They Follow is a different movie, and I don't know if they have a title now for the sequel, but they had, what's her name, Mia, the star of It Follows.
Oh yeah. Maika Monroe.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
can cut
Not
out
me.
all of that fucking silence, and then it can just be me being like, "Oh, you idiot! It's Monrika. It's Monrika, Maika Monroe."
But she said that she's really pumped for this fucking movie. She said,
Is she in it again?
Yeah, she's
Okay.
lead in it again. She said it's meeting up with her farther along in life, and that she had just like a crazy experience just reading the script. She's like, this gets me so pumped up for this fucking movie, gets me so excited to be in this movie and to just bring this movie to fans who are, you know, so feverishly obsessed with It Follows.
Also, we're gonna see her again in Long Legs.
That's why, I brought it up.
so-
Yeah,
Man, she's in so many good horror movies.
good for her.
Maika Monroe, she's in
for her.
It Follows. She's gonna be in the sequel to It Follows. She's in Long Legs. She's in Significant Other. She's
Significant
in
Other was so good.
Watcher. Have you seen Watcher?
I have seen Watcher.
Watcher's really good. She had a brief little her brief little like big time Hollywood break. She was in the Independence Day sequel.
Good for her.
You know, she's done
Good
a
for
little.
her.
She was in Villains, which is one of my favorite movies ever.
I just recently rewatched that. I
Villains
showed it
is
to
so
Bailey,
good.
and it had a blast.
Villains kicks ass, dude. If you haven't seen Villains, missing out. I think there was a Netflix movie where she's like held captive by like a rich dude and his AI like smart house. The movie's called Tao. That movie's really good.
Ooh, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, I think it's on Netflix original. Yeah, she's like captured by a guy and held captive in his house, but she has free reign of it because it's like a smart house. So it's all like locked down by like an AI robot. But then she like kind of like cozies up to the AI, you know, and then it gets confused. It's cool. It's like a really good like
Ooh.
captive horror kind of movie. It's like a fun blend of that and sci-fi. She's in so much good stuff.
But I think that's it for us this week. We have a little bit more of an island to explore.
Yeah, we're gonna go. I really have to get back on the. You know what it is when you hire people to do a job and 90% of the time you go into the room and they're just sitting down. I'm like, come on, look at all these wrought iron bars. You have to get rid of this. I can't. We can't. It's just
There are too many locks on this door.
It's like, you know what? Sometimes it's better just DIY. Why I don't know why I even hire these people.
And speaking of DIY, check us out on Twitch, where we're streaming fun, hot and wet horrors all summer long to go along with our summer theme here on the podcast.
Yeah, we've been doing a fun Lovecraftian mystery game recently, but this Wednesday, this tomorrow, I guess, when you're listening to this.
Yes, because this comes out on Tuesday. Yep.
Yeah, we'll be starting a new horror game called Then Wakes the Deep. So that should be fun. Yeah, it comes out this week. So we'll be starting a new first-person survival horror. That'll be a good time. And we've just got more fun stuff waiting in the deep. But yeah, all right. Until then, everybody, keep it real. Stay moist, Beelzebuds. We'll be back.
Wear sunscreen.
Yeah, you're gonna be out on the sand for a while until we come back to entertain you next week, and we'll be back with The Deep with a cool, a really really good horror novel discussion. So I don't care if you don't read, you still have to listen because you're stuck on the island anyway with us. All right, have a good week, everybody. Creep it real.
I thought you were going to hags on them.
Hags?
Have a great summer, like the yearbook thing, hags.
Oh, I didn't have any friends in high school, so I never got those.
Bye.
Was it the water in my eyes, or did I just see a little lip action between you two?
Joey.
You know, I could always go for a stroll down the beach, or
Joey?
go for a little swim. Although I gotta tell you, if I never get back in that damn water,
Joey.
Okay, cool. I'll stick around. You don't have to beg me.